Hi, my name is Mehrling. I'm a member of the advisory board of INET, and the purpose of this video is to just give you a little introduction to what this blog is going to be all about. The purpose of INET is to stimulate new economic thinking. And we think that the events of the last several years, the global financial crisis, show that where that thinking is most needed is in macroeconomics and finance. And that's what this blog is supposed to be about, stimulating new thinking in macroeconomics and finance. To do that, I'm going to go back to the basics. And by back to the basics, I mean the money view. Both modern macroeconomics and modern finance have their historical origins in this money view way of thinking about the world. But the money view itself has its origins in the attempts by practical people, not academics, practical bankers, practical central bankers, to understand the events of their lives, of their business. That's where it came from. And that's what I'm going to try to do in this blog, is to apply the money view perspective to current events, the practical events of our lives. The current events as reported in the financial press. So what I'm going to be doing in this blog is talking about what's happening as reported in the day's paper, particularly the Financial Times, which I love and which I hope you'll come to love too, but also in reports that are given occasionally by the government or by industry. I bring to this blog no particular insider knowledge about what's happening inside the banking world. My sources are available to you. They're the publicly available sources in the newspapers and reports, things that are on the internet. What I bring is a special way of thinking about this. My job is to connect the dots. The money view I use to help identify which of the dots are significant that we should be paying attention to, and also what are the lines between them. It's the money view that I bring to the table. What is this money view? Basically, there are four ideas that are central to the money view. The first idea is that everyone is a bank. What I mean by that is that everyone faces the daily problem of cash inflows and cash outflows, trying to match them up. And in doing so, the discipline that disciplines our behavior, that we need to pay our bills, that we need to make arrangements so that the cash outflow that we've committed for debt payments we can meet with the cash inflow that's coming in at the same time. Hyman Minsky called this the survival constraint. For banks, it's the reserve constraint at different places in the system. That's the first idea. The second idea is that the economy is a collection of these bank-like individuals who are all connected together. My inflow is your outflow. My financial asset is your financial debt. Morris Copeland, in a famous book, created an accounting system for this money flow economy, as he called it, that has become our modern flow of funds accounts. And this is the source, this interconnected character of our balance sheets is the source of what Ralph Hawtrey called the fundamental instability of a credit economy, its tendency to go to extremes, booms and then busts. That's the second point, money flow economy as a whole. The third point is that this money flow economy is inherently hierarchical. You and I, when we're making transactions with each other, we pay our debts using bank deposits. We pay our debts, a form of credit, with a form of money, bank deposits. Banks, however, who are a level above us in the hierarchy, pay their debts to each other, not using their own deposits, okay, but by using deposits at the central bank, using money to pay credit. And central banks, which are the level higher above even them, use international reserves to make payments to other central banks. It's an inherently hierarchical system. What this means is that the higher layers can always make the life easier for the lower layers, or harder. They can create more elasticity or more discipline for the lower layers because the liabilities of the higher layers are the money that the lower layers use. The fourth point in the money view is the key role of dealers in knitting together the various layers of this hierarchy. What a dealer is an agent that seeks profit by making a two-way market between the different layers, offering to go either way, to buy forms of credit using money, to sell forms of credit using money, either way. At the bottom of the hierarchy, we have security dealers who are going back and forth between securities of various kinds and bank deposits. The layer above, we have banks that are making markets between currency and their own deposits, different forms of money. Higher up, we have central banks that are making markets between their own currency and other foreign currencies. It's a dealer system that connects it all the way up the hierarchy and makes it into a unified system, these dealers. Now, from this point of view, what is a central bank? A central bank is, as I've said, a dealer, but it's a special kind of a dealer. Whereas the other dealers, private banks and private security dealers, are motivated by profit. That's their whole point. That's why they're making these two-way markets. Central banks don't have to be if they don't want to be. This is the point that Walter Bagehot famously made in his 1873 book, Lombard Street, where he pointed out that central banks could play a very useful role in the economy by putting a floor under financial crises. The way they would do that, he urged, was by lending freely at a high interest rate during times of crisis. Using the language of the money view, what he's saying is that the central bank can create more elasticity at a time when the problem the economy is facing is excessive discipline. Okay. This idea that there's a special role for the central bank in managing the economy as a whole has been expanded in modern monetary policy to be about economic stabilization, concern for social welfare more generally. Bagehot is the origin of all modern monetary policy. The funny thing is, these are old ideas. So in what sense is this supposed to foster new economic thinking? As I've said, these ideas come from history. They are the origin of modern macro and modern finance. In what sense is this supposed to be new economic thinking? Here's the point. Modern macroeconomics and modern finance started with the money view, but then they abstracted from it. All four of these points are nowhere in modern macro and modern finance because they decided to focus on other issues. They adopted what economists call a conception of intertemporal general equilibrium, which abstracts from all of these monetary details. The point for our purposes here is that both macroeconomics and finance abstract from the money view. So if we use the money view as our lens through which we look at modern current events, we're going to see something different. Okay. It's going to be different, but it's also going to be new, because the conversation for the last 50 years has been abstracting from this point of view. So no one knows how to think about the economy in this way anymore, okay? It's an old idea, but it's a new way of thinking. That's the point of this blog. So why me? What are my qualifications for doing this blog? Basically, I'm a professor, which means that I do research and I teach. For the last 23 years, uptown here in New York, at Barnard College of Columbia University. My research has been mainly about the history of ideas in economics, the history of ideas in monetary economics and in finance. That's where I learned about the money view. That's why I know about this old tradition. My teaching has been about something else. It's been about modern monetary institutions, repo markets, eurodollar markets, swap markets, all that kind of stuff, which I've taught out of Marcia Stigham's Money Markets, the desk reference for people who trade this stuff downtown on Wall Street. That's where I began to learn about this world. Only in recent years have I started to bring these two sides of myself together. In my most recent book, The New Lombard Street, which is a history of the Fed over the last 100 years, but also over the last 3 years, the transformation of the Fed during this global financial crisis. It really brings these two pieces together, and that's been a source of great satisfaction for myself. What I'm going to try to do in this blog is now to build on that, to use this new integration in my own thinking to think about current events as they're happening in real time. So if you're getting the impression that I'm basically a library guy, you're right. I've spent most of my life trying to read Bagehot in the morning and read the Financial Times in the afternoon and make these things talk to one another. I've used my classroom for that purpose. In fact, every time I begin a class, I begin with some article from that day's Financial Times, which I try to interpret in the light of this older monetary view, money view tradition. And the students seem to like that. So that's what I'm going to be starting with in this blog, is doing exactly that, reading the current press and interpreting it. Now, for me, the satisfaction of knowledge is just its own satisfaction. I'm not particularly trying to use it to make money, but just to understand. what is happening, how to interpret the events of the world around us. That's what I'm all about. And if that's what you're interested in, this blog is for you.